What's up, guys? Thanks so much for watching the Hive YouTube channel. We got another video for you this week, and we're gonna have one coming out every single Thursday, so make sure you subscribe. Where is the darkest place you have ever been? Think about it. The darkest spot that you have ever been in. I can think of a time. I was going to the Cave of the Winds with my family, which, if you don't know, it's a huge cave down in Colorado Springs. And so we're in the middle of this cave, about a half mile in. And all along the cave, they got lights inside. And all of a sudden, they turn them off. And in that moment, I've never been in a darker spot. You could hold your hand right in front of your face, and you couldn't see anything. It was so dark. It was unbelievable. And all of a sudden, just one little light from a little flashlight illuminated the whole room. And this little flashlight wouldn't do anything anywhere else, but because it was so dark in that cave, it illuminated the whole place. And I think about this too. We went to the Hillsong concert this last weekend, and there was a moment when the lights came completely down. And people started pulling out their cell phones and using the flashlight on their phone. And all of a sudden, just one flashlight from a phone in this huge arena, the Pepsi Center, started to illuminate, started to show light. And eventually everybody began to use the light on their phone, and the whole room was illuminated. You could see everything just like the house lights were on. From one light at a time, collectively, people shining their lights together. And there's this idea that the darker the room, the darker the situation, the darker the place, the brighter the light shines. And that's what we're talking about today. How bright is your light shining? This is what I want you to remember in your circumstances in your life. Bright lights shine brighter in dark circumstances. And so we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 8. We're going to be looking at verse 16. It's called the parable of the lamp. And Jesus says this: "No one lights a lamp and then covers it up with a bowl or hides it under a bed. A lamp is placed on a stand where it can be seen by all who enter the house." Right? Listening to this at first, it seems like super elementary, super common sense, right? Of course, you're not going to cover up a lamp because it needs to shine light. It needs to show everything. But Jesus isn't talking about light. He's using a metaphor, and he's talking about us. See, as Christians, we're supposed to be the light of the world. But we don't always act that way, do we? I think that most of us live between these two separate worlds, right? I think most of us have these two separate identities. There's our church world, how we act at church, and all Christian-y. And then there's our earthly world, which is school, your jobs, hanging out with your friends. And we got a problem if these two things look differently, right? If you act one way at church and then another way outside of church, what does that tell? That you're a hypocrite. That's a problem. Do you know anybody like this? Have you ever struggled with this? Acting one way at church and then acting another way outside of church? Here's the problem. I think most of us, truthfully, if we're being honest, we act fake. We're hypocrites. We say one thing, but we do another. Do you know that for unbelievers, one of the biggest problems they have with Christians is the fact that Christians are so hypocritical? Can you blame them? Here we are supposed to love people, supposed to bring people alongside us, but then we get out of these church walls and we act totally different. There's a problem, right? There's a disconnect. We're supposed to be the light of the world, but often we don't show our flame. Often we cover it up. As soon as we leave church, we do what Jesus just said. We put a bowl over our light. We cover it up. And so go ahead and we're going to look at verse 17. Jesus says this, "For all that is secret will eventually be brought into the open." All the secrets you have, if you got this double life and you're hiding it, eventually it will be brought into the open. And everything that is concealed will be brought into the light and be made known to all. So if you're lying, if you're living a double life, if you're doing one thing but saying another, it'll eventually catch up with you. Your double life will eventually catch up with you. Paul said this, "Such people claim they know God, but they deny him by the way they live. They are detestable and disobedient, worthless of doing anything good." See, if you're living a fake life, a hypocrite life, if you live one way at church and then another way in the world, and you're claiming you know God, but truthfully you're denying him by the way you're living, got a problem. You can't be halfway. Halfway isn't good enough. And here's what I'm telling you. Jesus didn't sacrifice everything for you just to go halfway. Jesus didn't sacrifice everything for you to live a double life. So what happens? What happens if you don't change? What happens if you keep on living this double life? Well, we see it in verse 18. "So pay attention to how you hear. To those who listen to my teaching," Jesus says, "to those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given. To those who apply it, to those who actually sink it in, more understanding will be given. But to those who are not listening, even what they think they understand will be taken from them." Those things you think you know, the fact that you think you can hide it, that you can hide the sin, that you can balance in between, what you think you know will be taken from your understanding of what you can do and how you fit into this. It'll be taken from you. Instead, you can't be halfway. You gotta go all in. Your actions need to prove it. Instead, don't live a double life. Instead, be the light. Live like a Christian. Put these actions, these things we're talking about, what Jesus said, your faith, put your faith into action and live like a Christian, not just half the time, but all the time. You know, at church, in Big Church, we've been talking a lot about this idea of the 167, right? Because you guys come to youth group and it's only 2 hours a week. Maybe you come to church too, and that's maybe an hour. So 3 hours a week, you're spending time with God. And there's 168 hours in the week. That means 165 hours wide open. Are you still living like a Christian in those 165 hours? And if you're not, my plea to you is to start. Start living like a Christian. Start living like the light that you are. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave some comments, and share it with a friend. Share it with somebody who needs to see it. All right, thanks so much, guys. See you later. Bye.